Right then, hi everybody, it's Chris Hodgkiss here from Bridge Cloud Solutions. Today's Ask the Expert session is going to be a little bit different. Normally I would be inviting an audience to join us in the call, but this week I'm doing things a bit different. Unfortunately, due to unforeseen circumstances, I'm not going to be able to make the Friday, so we've recorded this in advance. So today's call is with Laura Amy from lauraamy.com. She's a life coach and also an online business coach, I believe. Hopefully I've got that right. And we've set up some questions to ask her about her business and what she does, and hopefully you guys will get some value from it. So before we start, I'll just get Laura to introduce herself.
Hi everyone, thanks for having me on, Chris. I'm excited to do this. So yeah, like Chris said, I'm Laura from lauraamy.com. I'm an online business and life coach. So I work primarily with women, but some men too, but primarily with women all across the world on how they can change their limiting beliefs, grow their business and make consistent income online. In brief.
Okay. Brilliant. Well, I can honestly say, as a client of yours, I'm truly impressed with your services in every way, shape, and form. I really enjoy following you on Facebook. You know, you kind of are the bright of my day. And do you know what? I'm going to let you in with a bit of a secret. It's Laura's quotes. So those quotes I put on Facebook that you see in the morning in my status. So those quotes that you see on my Facebook in the morning, they're nicked from Laura's Facebook status. There you go. Anyway,
we weren't going to tell anyone that little confession, but thanks.
Well, do you know what? But you know what? It says enough, doesn't it? Really. Anyway, let's get on with the questions. We're not going to make this like mastermind. Don't worry. You're not going to be sitting in the big black. You're not sitting in the big black leather chair. We've got no weird sound effects or anything like that. But we're just going to get on with it. So these are frequently asked questions that Laura gets asked all the time. And we thought what we'd do is we'd put them into Facebook, we'd put them on LinkedIn. It gives us both a little bit of promotion and, you know, happy days, really, I suppose. It'd be really good if any of you guys that are watching this today would like to join me on Ask the Expert. And if you want to do it, then just drop me a Facebook message, a LinkedIn message. There's so many different mediums now, but yeah, please just drop me a message and join me. I'm fully booked this month, and I've got 2 slots available next month, I believe, to get people on board. Anyway, Laura's not going to be around for much longer, so let's get on with it. I don't mean that she's going to die, by the way. She's just not going to be on the call for much longer.
That's a bit of a morbid thing to say.
She's got a long time to go yet, guys. Honestly, she's plenty of life left in the old dog, as they say.
That's
right.
It.
Anyway, so first question then: what qualifications do you need to be a coach, Laura?
Oh my gosh, I get asked this all the time, especially over the last few years, because I think the self-development industry has really boomed, especially in the UK over the last few years. It's always been quite big abroad. America and Canada have always kind of had the vibe of self-development, but in the UK especially, it's become big business over the last few years. And the truth is, in the UK, it's not regulated. Now, that has its positives and negatives. Positives being that anyone can be a coach, the negatives being that anyone can be a coach. So it's a bit of a catch-22 in the industry at the moment, because coaching as a whole, you don't need any qualifications for. Now, there are places out there that do life coaching diplomas. There's places out there that do generic coaching diplomas. You can obviously specialise in different methodologies of coaching, such as NLP and things like that. But overall, you don't need any qualifications to do it. That's not saying that I wouldn't recommend people at least dive into how to coach and their preferred way of coaching. But for me, I do truly believe that experience will always triumph over qualifications. That's not saying that I don't think it should be regulated. I do think we need more regulation in the UK for coaching. But it does mean that people have got the opportunity to coach other people through experiences that they've been through, without having to go down, you know, the traditional educational route. So right now, no qualifications are needed, which, like I say, it's very much down to the individual to explore that.
Personally, though, I don't think you can actually beat real life experience. You could have the most qualification in the world, and to be fair, it still wouldn't beat you, would it? The qualification would be dictating you. So and it's your. I mean, for me as a client, it's it's your life experience that I buy into. It's you that
Yeah.
I'm buying into. I'm not buying into the qualification. And it's the same with us in IT, funnily enough. You know, our business isn't regulated. We're not controlled. We don't need to be qualified to do what we do. We can. It's quite scary to think that's the case, but you can go and do qualifications if you want to go and do it. But it's what people buy into with me is they're buying into the relationship, they're buying into the person, and it's the same, I'm sure, with coaching.
It really is, and I think, like I say, you know, it has its downsides, but you know what? Every industry, you can have people qualified with every qualification, every letter after their name, and they could still be the worst person or the worst experience at that job.
I hate to say it, but they more likely will, because they'll have more of an arrogance behind them, won't they?
Yeah. Well, you know, it swings and roundabouts. I think we could do with some more regulation, I think, just to stop, because, you know, you do hear bad stories in the coaching industry and the self-development industry, as you do. But the flip side is, like I say, it's a super personal industry, and people do buy into your experience and what you've been. That's certainly why people buy into me. Like, they know my story, they know what I've been through. So yeah,
So moving on a little bit now, what about charging? So what would you say you should be, you know, charge or pay for coaching with somebody?
So again, I mean, this varies massively. So I know coaches who charge upwards of $100,000 to work with them for a year.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, I know coaches who charge, you know, per hour, per session, and it's 50, 60, that kind of area. If you are new to coaching, so I'll do it on this way first. If you are new to coaching and you're just getting into the industry, what I would suggest is looking at getting your experience up and how you handle coaching calls and coaching clients by doing some free sessions first of all, and then pitching yourself anywhere between the £50 and the £80 per hour mark. That tends to be where brand new coaches will start. So again, if you're looking for a coach and you really like someone and they might have just started their business, you know, or if you want to kind of test the waters with coaching, so you don't want to invest a massive amount, anywhere between sort of the £50 and £80 a mark is usually where new coaches will pitch themselves. More established coaches then start scaling from sort of £80 upwards if you were to break it down into an hour. But again, that can really go over, you know, it could be that it's £5,000 for 3 months in a block. It could be that coach offers smaller sessions. So each coach is very individual with how they charge. Don't be put off by that. Don't be put off if a coach is expensive. Likewise, don't be put off if they're offering things at a cheaper rate. Because again, it's very much about the coach that you're working with. The general rule of thumb is the more access you get to somebody, the more you pay for the access to them. So that's when you will start getting into the £3,000 plus, like for sort of your 3-month time scales. But like I say, you know, I know coaches who charge £10,000-20,000 for a month's coaching, 100,000 for 12 months coaching. So I think it depends massively.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally with stuff like that, I look at the return on investment. So I think if I'm going to spend £300, what do I need to be achieving to get that? Or £500, what does it look like?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think investing in a coach is something that, whether you're a coach and you're charging for your services, or whether you are someone investing in a coach, you generally do come up against the money mindset issues. You know, we've got so many different blocks and conditions around our money and our self-worth. So, you know, it is sometimes you do have to look at that strategic head, and you do have to be like, right, what do I actually want to earn? Or what have I actually got to spend? You know, if I put this down, what do I expect back? So sometimes when you're making that initial decision of spending or what you're charging, sometimes it can help to come out of your kind of emotional brain into a more strategic brain. Otherwise, you'll never move. You'll never spend big amounts on investments, and you'll never charge big amounts. So yeah, it varies massively, but general rule of thumb, 80. Most coaches in the UK are charging between £80 and £150 an hour. That's sort of the average mark.
Okie dokie. Fair dues. That's helpful. That's good. Let's move on to question 3 then. How do I know that the coach is right for me to work with?
Oh my God. I love this question. I get asked this question so much. Intuition, oh my God, is a big one for me. So you intuitively know when you're connected to somebody, especially, I mean, connection when you're meeting someone in person is very raw and very real. It can be a little bit harder to suss out online, but you know instantly if you're connected to somebody. You know instantly if you're connected to their branding, which is what tends to be what gets you into their space straight away. Their branding, their taglines, their bios, their pictures. Then that goes a level deeper, because then you normally find that you've been drawn to that person because you have something in common with them. They're talking to you, they're talking direct to your pain points, they're talking direct to, you know, your soul, because you've been through similar things. So for me, that initial burst of attraction is always intuition based, because you are naturally drawn to people. Then you can start digging deeper around things like, right, let me look at what this person's done for their clients. Have they done for their clients what I want to achieve? And then that's almost like the next step of looking at whether a coach is right for you. And then the final step is obviously the financials and the offers that they've got, to see whether they match where you're going. You know, if you're looking for one-on-one but the coach doesn't do one-on-one, or if you're looking for group coaching and that coach doesn't do group coaching, those things can come later down the line. But initially, oh my God, intuition will never, like your gut feeling, your intuition, especially when it comes to picking a coach, will never see you wrong.
Isn't that exactly what we said before we started this call today?
Yeah, like that's why I was laughing, because I was like, I'm literally going to answer this question. But yeah, intuition and then the practicals of it. So, and normally if you're guided to somebody and you're that drawn to them because of what they're putting out there, you're drawn to their energy, you're drawn into their world, normally that's a good sign that there's going to be an opportunity to work together, because otherwise you wouldn't be that drawn into them.
Don't get too excited then, will you? Because exactly what we said before we started this call. I want to be in Laura's world.
Do you know what though? The funniest thing is, you're the second person that said that to me in a week. They're like, it does feel like Laura's world. And I'm like, but that's what I want to cultivate. That's what I want people to feel like. That's what I want people to be drawn to, because I want people to see that.
Well,
so
you know what? It's working well. You're doing a good job.
But yeah, intuition, then client results and their previous clients, then pricing and structure around what your needs are. Those will be the 3 steps, I would say.
Perfect. This is really quite cool, isn't it?
I know, I like this. I love being interviewed. It's fun.
And your next question. We'll start for 10. Right, next question then. I'm sure this is one you're going to get asked all the time as well. So what's the difference between a coach or a consultant or a counsellor? They all seem very similar to me.
Yeah, so you are spot on. This is something I get asked all the time, and I think across the different industries there's a lot of confusion around it. Now for me, coaching very much sits in the middle of all the modalities. It very much sits because I think you draw on so many different things. Counselling, for a start, is classed as a professional entity. So you go and do a counselling qualification to be a counsellor. That's the first thing with counselling. And counselling will tend to help you work through whatever you're going through by combining different psychological aspects. So there's a lot of talking with counselling. There's a lot of looking at the backlog of things that have happened, whereas a coach will very much heal the backlog and look forward. That's the biggest difference that I found, having seen a counsellor in my early 20s and having worked with coaches for years. That's the biggest difference I find, that a counsellor or a psychologist or anything like that will look back and talk through it, whereas a coach will tend to look back briefly, but they'll draw on it. So they'll heal it, they'll get you doing forgiveness work, or actually figuring out that that situation wasn't negative and how it can benefit you moving forward, and then a coach will move you forward. So it's not a coach's job to tell you what to do, which again a counsellor may tend to do. They'll give you things to, you know, actual things to go away and do. A coach will very much ask you questions so you can find your own answers. Similarly, a consultant, you'd hire a consultant, if you're looking especially from a business point of view, you'd hire a consultant normally into your business to do the things you wanted to do, or at least tell you what you need to do in their opinion. Whereas a coach will be like, right, what do you think you need to do? How did that experience make you feel? How did that experience benefit you? How is that experience
isn't that a counsellor's favourite line? And how does that make you feel?
Yeah, but it comes from a very different place with a counsellor, because I think a counsellor, again, and this is where there is some overlap, but a coach will very much unpick it and use it, where a counsellor, this is my opinion, so this is no offence to counsellors, this is my opinion and my experience, a counsellor will take an answer, but then there's almost, it talk therapy with counselling is almost where it stops. It doesn't dig, and in my experience, like I said, having seen counsellors in the past and not getting on well with them.
Yeah, I can testify against that as well. They very much dwell on the past life, kind of, kind of look at what happened yesterday. What can we do to try and put that right? Whereas
you can't do that. You can't put the past right. Like you can't.
And to be fair, I mean, I've always had the attitude that you can walk forward, but you can't work back. You can't go backwards.
Yeah.
I can't change what happened before we started this call. I can't change what I said a second ago. But what I can do is I can move forward and think, look to the future and see what's in front of me. So,
and that's not saying that counselling doesn't work. Like, I will caveat that slightly. It's not saying that counselling doesn't work, but coaching and counselling tends to work. You normally find that the people who need to work with a coach have either struggled to work with a counsellor or vice versa. Some people take really, really well to counselling. Some people, like I did not take well to it all and ended up having to find a coach. So it's very individual as to what they need. Counselling and coaching is probably the biggest overlap, but like you've just actually hit the nail on the head. A counsellor will look at changing the past feelings, where a coach will look at changing the forward facing
they've got tools
feelings.
to do stuff like that. They use things like CBT and whatever else to kind of get you through it. And that's all about that, about how you kind of correct kind of the past and whatnot.
Yeah.
But let's move on to the next question, and not upset those counsellors. So don't take any offence.
Or consultants. Oh, no offence is intended to counsellors or consultants.
You all do an amazing job.
You do.
Full stop.
We just all serve very different people in very different ways. That's all it is.
Absolutely. Maybe I should be an IT coach rather than an IT consultant then. Be the first if it's kind. You never know.
There you go.
Yeah. Moving on. Okay, so one thing I struggle with is overcoming limiting beliefs to enable me to move forward. Is this law of attraction thing really real, or is it just a fallacy?
Oh my gosh, the law of attraction is so real. Like, whether you want to believe it or not, it's always working. I think people have been a little bit disillusioned. People who don't believe in the law of attraction have been a little bit disillusioned by it, because I think they've seen an influx of woo across the internet, and especially since the book and the Secret and the film and stuff came out. And I think people have overlooked the scientific background for it. You know, even if you have a scientific brain, a scientific mind, like quantum physics, all of that, like it's there, like it's real. We may articulate it differently because we bring it from a spiritual point of view and a healing and holistic point of view, but scientifically at its core it is still there. You know, the phone we're doing this through, the chair we're sat on, it's just particles vibrating at a very high frequency. Those particles are attracted to each other. You know, you can look at it, whether you look at it from a science point of view or whether you look at it from a spirituality point of view, the law of attraction, the law of vibration, that they're all working all the time. You know, we have an energy field around us that is magnetic, so when we get on the frequency of what we want, we can attract what we want. You know, there's the coincidences, again, the word coincidence, there are no coincidences. You attract things, you vibe with things. So yeah, it's very, very real. I just don't think most people are using it. Like, I don't think most people realize it's real and take the time to understand it so they can use it to their advantage.
Yeah, I can remember in a previous life where I must have used the law of attraction. Then maybe it was a bit of a mistake in the end. But years and years ago, when I used to live in Brawley-Bonk, back in the Black Country, I had a lot of retail jobs in the Merry Hill Centre. And I used to hang around some of these shops saying things in my head like, I'd really like to work there. I'd really like a job there. And I ended up working there in the end. It must have been kind of just my kind of energy, really wanting it so badly.
Yeah.
And it ended up happening. And in the end, it ended up being that people are actually coming to find me from other stores for me to go and work for them. So I see that as a little bit of law of attraction, so to speak.
It is, and I think, you know, it's a bit like you can look at it from another perspective. You know, when you were, you know, have you ever, like, on the motorway and you've played like Spot the Red Car, or you've gone to buy a new car and all of a sudden you've seen that car everywhere? It's because your brain has been programmed to look for that thing. Like, you've put that vision, you put that car, you put whatever it is into your subconscious mind, which has programmed your mind to look for more of it. So, you know, whether you look at it from a science-based or a spiritual universal base.
So do you think that's why humans get attracted to people in certain ways? So there's a certain thing that we look for. So, you know, you might like brunettes, you might like girls with dark hair, you might like girls with blue eyes, whatever. You know, you end up looking for that, don't you? It's the same type of thing, really. It's still,
yeah, it's how your mind's programmed. And, you know, if you're programmed for lack, for example, or you're programmed for struggle, or you're programmed, you know, if you were told as a kid that money doesn't grow on trees, the chances are that's the belief system you're going to take with you. So you're going to attract more of that thing. If you're starting each day, you know, if you expect to get ill this time of year, if you expected to, and I was very vocal about this at the start of this year, if you expected to lose your job, if you expected to not make money, those are the things that were going to happen. Because
just by saying that in that way and putting it in that level of context has really simplified the understanding of what the law of attraction is. So if you watch the video or the DVD as it is nowadays, or even though if it's on Netflix, I don't know, he overcomplicates the whole thing.
Yeah.
And what you just said there in the space of 30, 40 seconds has really simplified the whole thing. It shows you don't need to go and watch the whole film or read the whole book just to understand what the law of attraction is.
And so, you know, my biggest problem with that, and I've always said this, where another big misconception with the law of attraction is people think that the law of attraction is activated through sitting and saying, I want this, and then just sitting back and waiting for it to come. Like, it's not just about that. It's about affirming what you want, getting on the frequency of what you want, but then being able to detach from how that happens. But actually, those little nudges that tell you to do certain things, drive certain ways, put certain programs out, say something on the internet, like those things, that's the inspired action, and that's what activates it. Like, you have to show up 100% for what you want, so the universe can show up 100% for you. So it's that combination of reprogramming in your mind what you want to attract and what you want, but then being able to put yourself on the energy with it so that you get those guides, you get those nudges for the inspired action you need to take in order for it to happen. Because it's not just going to be like, oh, I want £10,000 and £10,000 is going to land on my lap. Like, no, you have to show up.
If it was that easy, we'd all be doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool. Well, we'll talk again about that afterwards, I think, because that's really quite helpful. I'm going to give you my last question. Again, this is another question from me personally. I get a lot of negativity in the outside world. I mean, I try and stay strong and try and kind of overcome it and try and blank it and try and put it to the back of my mind. But there's a lot of people who don't want me sitting here today. You know, go and get a proper job. or
I've
going,
heard that a lot.
but what can we do to try and deal with this? I mean, especially if family pick up this recording afterwards, then obviously this is not aimed at you guys directly, okay? And I'm going to look in the camera and tell you it's not aimed at you. But it's something I know other people who I work with in business have to deal with as well. But for some reason, there's a lot of people who just really just don't want it. You know, they don't want us doing what we're doing. And what can we do to try and deal with that?
Oh gosh, where do I start? So, and you touched on this in your previous questions, well, around like limiting beliefs and things like that. Yeah. What we have to remember is everybody, and I'll start by saying this because I think it kind of allows each individual to have a better understanding of why people behave the way they do and why we behave the way we do. Everybody is living within their own existence. Everybody is living within their own ego, their own judgments, their own visions of happiness, their own versions of what brings them joy, their own versions of what makes them angry, what upsets them, and what triggers them through their own limiting beliefs. So quite often, one thing I will always say when you're experiencing negativity or you aren't experiencing the support you necessarily want, which again is something I see a lot in business, where people are like, you know, my family's not supportive, my friends don't understand what I'm doing, or anything like that. What we have to remember is we have no control over how anyone else operates. Like, the only thing we can control is our response to those things. So other people can only ever act and behave from their level of understanding, which their level of understanding can be filled with a multitude of triggers, insecurities. So if you've got somebody who could never imagine leaving their job because they're terrified and they've been brought up that you go to college, university, you have a job, you retire, you get your clock at the end when you retire, you live off your retirement, you have a couple of nice holidays, rah, rah, rah. You coming out of that and affecting their equilibrium is enough to trigger them for them to project those insecurities and those fears onto you. And you can't change that. And that's a really hard thing for a lot of people to get their heads around, that they can't change other people projecting their stuff onto them. So what we have to do is bring it back to ourselves and look at, okay, why does it bother me what other people think? Why do I need someone else's validation to tell me that I can do this? Why do I need someone else's approval to quit my job and start a business? Why do I need, and yes, it's nice, there's always the argument, well, it's nice to, you know, to have your family and friends support you, but at the end of the day, we can only take ourselves to the level that we take ourselves to. We can't operate on a higher level than we're already at. So if we want to keep growing, we have to keep expanding what we think is possible for ourselves, and not necessarily ignore those people, but examine it from our point of view. Why has that upset me? Why has that irritated me? Why do I feel unsupported? And then the final point is saying, right, how can I give what I'm expecting them to give to me? How can I give it to myself? That will always be the key, because, you know, there's this misconception of, I'll feel better when this happens. I'll feel better when they support me. I'll feel better when I've got the money. I'll feel better when I do this. And
any difference in the end, does it?
No, but it's a total paradox, because actually you get those things when you give those things to yourself. People will only support you as much as you support yourself. People will only validate you as much as you validate yourself. So you have to always bring, and I say this to my clients all the time, like, you have to always bring it back to yourself and be like, right, what is this showing up for me? Why am I triggered by this? Why am I upset from it? Why is it highlighting that I'm not giving to myself? And how can I give that to myself? If people are being negative and I want more positivity, how can I give more positivity to myself? How can I increase the positivity I have for what I'm doing? How can I find people that will give me that positivity? So it's about almost having a game plan of, this is how I'm going to deal with it. This is what I know it's true. Because if you deal with what it's triggering in you, actually what ends up happening is the people's behavior doesn't bother you as much, because you're self-fulfilling what you need to self-fulfill. And it's the same with like limiting beliefs. If somebody doesn't believe, to shift a belief. If somebody doesn't believe they can do something, if somebody doesn't believe they can earn a certain amount of money, or they can quit their job for their business, you really have to look at that limiting belief, assess where it's coming from, assess what it's highlighting, what fears it's highlighting, what's triggering, and then decide the new belief and reinforce the new belief. It's the same thing, but it can be tough. Like, I don't say that lightly, because it can be really tough to do. But you can't control anyone else. So the only thing you can control is you. That's the only thing you can work on. You can't force other people not to be negative. No. You can't force other people. But I think the more you work on yourself, the more you develop this like protective bubble around you, where your energy is more valuable than what they've got to say anyway. So you protect it.
I don't think I'm in that place, so that's good.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And if all else fails, meditate. Meditation, as we said before this call, will fix anything.
We'll do a meditation lesson next, shall we?
Meditation will fix any low vibes that you've got from anyone.
Yeah, I did a whole session in mindfulness. I spent some time doing a full mindfulness course. It was absolutely brilliant. So yeah, meditate.
Yeah,
right.
Meditate. It fixes
Guys,
everything.
We've reached the end of the call. Normally at this point, we would have some questions from people who will be joining us on the call. But as I mentioned earlier on in the call, there are unfortunately just two of us today. But if you have got questions and you see this post in Facebook and LinkedIn, obviously make some comments, make some noise on there. Laura and myself will obviously help you answer those questions.
I will.
There you go. So that's it, guys. We're all done.
Well, thanks for having me.
That's all right. My pleasure. We're going to end the call now. I say thanks very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed today's session. I'm sure Laura did. And well, I did in a way. And no, she did. She did. That's good.
I did. I'm still here. I did.
There you go. Yeah, she loved it. Brilliant. Excellent. Right. Okay. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll catch up with you all again next week. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.